A man is doing some rough interrogation for a name because they need to wake the girl back up before it becomes dangerous. The men gives the name Dmitry Mediev to avoid the torture. They give him a sedative once they get the name, and the interrogator turns out to be Ethan Hunt. The girl named Claire wakes up after Ethan injects her with something, and Ethan is relieved she's okay. On the plane, Jim Phelps is given a mission to look for Alexander Golitsyn because he's a traitor who stole one half of the CIA knock list, which has records of all their deep cover agents.
He is also a traitor. He has stolen one half of a CIA knock list.
Luckily, the records were split into code names and true names. A team is already chosen for the mission, and if anybody is caught or killed, the US will deny any involvement. They want Jim to find proof of theft, the buyers, and to arrest them all. Jim arrives in Prague to meet up with the team to tell them what the mission is and starts telling them their assignment. They start roasting Jim on his cushy recruiting assignments because he is getting the luxury life while they're drinking cheap coffee. Jim steers it back to the mission because if anybody that's not the United States gets the names, a whole lot of agents are going to die.
If they're exposed, they'll be executed.
Jack gives Ethan gadgets for the mission, and the others set up a perimeter for the area they will monitor. At an evening party, Jack climbs up the elevator to hook up a device that messes with the security system. Sarah disguises herself as Miss Norman to guide Ethan, who is also in disguise, and she marks their target, Alexander. Hannah uses her spy glasses to find the marking and calls out where Alexander is going. Jack is stuck in a rough position when the elevator comes down, which makes it harder for Jack to break them in. A security comes to get Sarah's ID to see if she's on their database. Jack luckily uploads her ID into their database in time to let them get through. They reach the database to set up a spy camera, but Alexander is heading to the database also. Ethan and Sarah were too late to get back on the elevator, and Jack couldn't control it, so Jim had to help with their escape. Alexander arrives to transfer the data, and they get the recording of it. Ethan and Sarah leave the building and they want to secure the package. The elevator starts going up and Jack dies because no one can stop the elevator from going to the top. Alexander escapes the way Ethan did, and Jim wants them to hold on until Jim arrives, but he notices that they are being ambushed. Jim wants to abort the mission, but Ethan doesn't listen and wants to retrieve the package with Sarah's help. Sarah follows Alexander while Ethan rushes to Jim to back him up, but Ethan is too late and he finally orders to abort the mission. A couple monitors Sarah, while she sees Alexander dragged to the gate, and when she walks closer, she sees Alexander getting terminated. Ethan runs to Claire, but the car blows up with her inside. He rushes to Sarah, but Sarah and Alexander are also neutralized. Police show up shortly after, and Ethan runs away to a payphone to tell Eugene Kittredge that his team has been wiped out because someone knew they were coming.
My team is dead!
Eugene will meet Ethan in an hour, and that got Ethan suspicious. Ethan goes to the meeting place and asks Eugene why there was another team because he recalls seeing a couple of IMF agents during their missions. Eugene tells Ethan there has been a mole in the IMF for over 2 years. They decoded a message from Max, the arms dealer who corrupts good agents and was planning to buy the knock list. Eugene set up a mole hunt, believing Ethan is the mole because he is the sole survivor of the mission and recently received a lot of money. Eugene wants to take Ethan in quietly, but Ethan is already thinking of an escape plan with the explosive gum. Ethan throws the explosive at the fish tank and water gushes out, letting Ethan run away. He sneaks back to the safe house to pack what he needs and starts researching what Eugene said about the mole. Ethan narrows down the search after going through the Bible and messages Max to meet up. Jim walks through the door heavily injured, asking for Ethan's help, but he is just hallucinating from exhaustion because it was Claire who woke him up. Ethan freaks out and pulls a gun on Claire because he watched her die in the car explosion, but she escaped the car explosion in time. He starts patting her down because he thinks someone sent her. Claire came back because if they aborted the mission they were supposed to come back at 4 a.m. Ethan tells her the IMF thinks Ethan is the mole and he plans to play into it to find out who's the real mole.
I can't find him, but if he knows I have a knock list, he'll find me.
Claire wants to speak with Eugene to clear up the situation, but Ethan doesn't think it's a good idea. They get a message from Max on how and where they will be meeting up. Ethan goes to the meetup location to meet Max, but he must wear a blindfold. Max allows Ethan to speak with her without the blindfold, and she finds out Ethan isn't job when Ethan demands $150,000.
I want $150,000 today.
Ethan tells Max the disc was fake because it was bait to find the mole in the IMF. Ethan will get Max the knock list if she gives up job and warns them the disc is a tracker. Max doesn't trust Ethan and starts it up, letting Eugene's team track them. Luckily they got out in time and Barnes wants to lock down Prague to arrest them, but Eugene knows Ethan can escape because they are trained to be ghosts. Eugene doesn't want to chase him and will let Ethan come to them. Max tells Ethan she paid Job $6 million for the disc and offers Ethan $6 million for the complete list. Ethan counters with a $10 million payout and Job has to be there for the exchange and Max agrees to the deal. He goes back to the safe house to tell Claire what happened and he is surprised Claire is willing to help Ethan find the mole. Ethan looks for help from the disavowed list and he meets up with Franz and Luther to tell them about the mission. Franz thinks Ethan is crazy because they are breaking into the CIA. Luther doesn't know if they can because he physically needs to be there to hack the system, but if they do, he wants to keep the equipment. Ethan gives a detailed report on how the security system works and is determined to break in.
And you really think we can do this?
We're going to do it.
In Langley, firefighters rush into the building and Luther helps them get through. Claire sneaks into a room to change while they go into the service room. She laces William's drink and places a tracker on him. Franz wants to eliminate the guard but Ethan doesn't want to have any death count and they start going through the vents. Ethan uses a machine to block the lasers and unscrews the vent. Franz slowly lets Ethan down but stops when William comes in. William vomits and rushes to the washroom to continue vomiting. Ethan uses the time to download the knock list. Franz is struggling to keep Ethan and when a rat shows up, he almost drops Ethan onto the reactive floor. Ethan starts sweating and catches the falling droplet. Franz starts pulling Ethan up when William is coming back but the rope is making noise because it went off the prop during the drop. Ethan can retrieve the disc and remove everything before William arrives but Franz drops his knife when retrieving the disc. William finds out someone messed with the mainframe and informs Eugene. Eugene is pissed and wants to ship William to Alaska for the massive F-up.
I want him manning a radar tower in Alaska by the end of the day.
Ethan tossed a gas grenade to create chaos and that let them blend into escape. In London, Ethan messages Max and Franz is annoyed with Ethan ignoring him. Franz wants to meet with the buyer but Ethan won't let him and Franz threatens Ethan with the disc. Ethan shows Franz a magic trick because he swapped the disc before Franz snatched it on the mission. Franz tosses the disc after threatening Ethan if he messes with him on the money. Ethan picks up the Bible and realizes Jim is the mole because he stayed at the Drake Hotel on his last mission. Claire apologizes to Ethan for bringing Franz in and tries seducing Ethan before going to sleep. Ethan takes the disc from the trash because he bamboozled Franz and gives the disc to Luther for safekeeping because if Luther knew what the mission was, he wouldn't have done it. Claire calls Ethan because they are arresting his family members on the news. Ethan goes out to call Eugene to threaten him and cuts the call before they can pinpoint his exact location but at least they know he's in London. Jim surprises Ethan and tells Ethan how he tracked him down after just missing him at the safe house. He tells Ethan that Eugene is the mole but Ethan doesn't believe him.
Kittredge, Ethan.
Ethan tries to think of how Jim pulled off the stunt and knows Franz helped eliminate some of them but Jim knows what he did. He knows Eugene will come because Ethan has the knock list and he plans to meet with Max tomorrow on the TGV en route to Paris. Claire and Luther will be with him on the train while Franz is waiting in Paris with a helicopter for extraction. Ethan messages Max on the meetup location and goes back to the safe house to get intimate with Claire. Eugene arrives in London the next day and is given train tickets to the meetup location with a spy watch. On the train, Jim is setting up his gun and waiting for Max to call him. Eugene and Frank are walking around to look for potential suspects. Ethan calls Max to tell her where the disc is and Andreas opens the knock list. Once she sees the list she tells Ethan where the money is located and when he gets the money Job will find him. Claire tells Ethan Eugene is lurking by and Ethan wants to meet Claire at the baggage car.
The money's in the baggage car. I'll meet you there.
Max has trouble connecting to the modem to transfer the data because Luther is jamming their signal. Luther tries to get away when he sees Eugene closing in, but the train steward gives Luther his phone jammer back before he can hide in the washroom and that stops the jammer from jamming their modem. Max tells Job that Ethan is in the baggage car and he heads that way. Eugene sees someone trying to break into the washroom but the guy stops and walks to another car to avoid Eugene. Claire tells Jim that it isn't a good idea to eliminate Ethan because Eugene is there and they should just escape with the money. Ethan reveals himself but Jim barges in to ask him when he knew Jim was a traitor. Ethan figured it out due to the Bible and Claire takes the money from him. Ethan had one more card to play which was revealing Jim to Eugene. Jim shoots Claire when she pleads to Jim and knocks down Ethan like he's nothing. Ethan goes after Jim when he finds out Claire is dead. The wind pressure is making it hard for Ethan to go after Jim without equipment and Franz shows up to extract Jim. Franz tries to hurry it up because he sees the tunnel incoming. Ethan takes the opportunity to hook the helicopter to the train and almost gets kicked off while Franz is forced to fly into the tunnel. Jim gets onto the helicopter and Franz tries to terminate Ethan with the blades. Luckily, the helicopter had to back off because it didn't have enough room, which let Ethan get on the helicopter. Ethan took out the explosive gum and stuck it on the helicopter. Due to plot armor, Ethan lands back on the train and nearly survives the helicopter's blades from chopping his head off. Eugene chats with Max after Luther gives them the disc. Ethan and Luther celebrate the win because Luther is off the disavowed list for assisting Ethan on the mission, and Ethan is glad Eugene released his family from BS charges like Trump's BS charges.
It's you, Luther. Being off the disavowed list.
Luther wonders why Ethan won't go back, but Ethan doesn't have a reason to go back and leaves to catch his flight. On the flight, a stewardess recommends Ethan a movie and Ethan knows the IMF is giving him a mission. Well, that's it for Mission Impossible. If you got up to this far, watch the next part or other recaps you may like. If you enjoyed the video, please support me with a like and comment away. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.
You've never seen this trick?